Hello and welcome to Series 3 of The Life of Letters. I'm Laura Edralin, your host and London-based calligrapher, curious about the history and future of letters. This season, we're diving back into the rich world of scripts, letter forms, and the stories behind the marks we make on paper and elsewhere. A massive thank you to Speedball for sponsoring this season of the podcast. It really means so much to us. Not only do we have their Director of Product Marketing, Melissa, joining me for an episode this season, but I've been using Speedball tools since my very early days of calligraphy, so their support truly means the world. Enjoy the episode, and if you want to find out more about the guest, the podcast, or me, please check out the show notes. So in today's episode, I'm delighted to be speaking with Jackson Alves, well known in Instagram circles as Letter Jack. Jackson is a Brazilian graphic designer and letterform expert based in Orlando in the US. Jackson has collaborated with brands like Apple, Coca-Cola and Montblanc and teaches both online and in person. Jackson, firstly, a huge welcome to the Life of Letters podcast. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. I'm really happy to be here, and it's a pleasure to be part of this podcast. And I'm excited to share a bit of my own journey and talking about the beautiful world of the letters.
Absolutely. I'm so excited because you've been creating letters for about 25 years, right? I mean, it's long. You've won the Certificate of Typographic Excellence by Type Directors Club. Your work is part of a permanent collection as well in the Contemporary Museum of Calligraphy in Moscow. I didn't even know there was a Museum of Calligraphy. But can you tell us a little bit about how you got into working with letters all those years ago?
For sure. Yeah, actually, I'm working as a graphic designer for 25 years. Only with letters is 15 years, actually.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a graphic designer, you probably will work with typography and everything. Going deep on the letter side of the letter forms and everything, it's about 15 years, actually, yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. So the graphic design has been 25 years, but really focusing on letters in the last 15 years.
15, yes.
So 15 years ago, what was that moment that kind of sparked that interest in going into the letters?
Yeah. So actually, I always liked the letters, typography. I mean, I remember, for example, when I was in the school, that was before the computer era. So I remember why I was the guy who created the covers for the school project, school stuff. At that time, it's mostly lettering, create some great letters, big letters, and to do all that covers. So I always like to do that. So yeah, in the graphic design college, I also took typography classes. I remember I created a typeface in the college, but I like that part, but I never really paid the attention I think we needed that time. Yeah, so I got a degree in graphic design. I started working as a graphic designer. I started work for my own company. I worked for a lot of other studios. And I was about 10 years of working with graphic designing, and I was looking for something to recharge my energy as a creative person, because I was okay, I already had my own studio, already worked for several design studios, and what next? What can do next? And that time, I didn't know exactly what lettering was about that time because it was not a famous as nowadays. A friend of mine from the design college, he actually published something. I believe it was Instagram, Facebook, I don't know where. He published something. I about to teach a lettering workshop in Curitiba. Curitiba is the name of the city, my hometown there. And I saw, because that was a big friend of mine, and that's cool. What is lettering exactly? But okay, so I thought, okay, let me take this class and maybe I can learn something new, right? Because I was looking for something new in my career. And the poster of the workshop was so beautiful. I remember it was beautiful flourish in the cover and a big letter L. And I said, oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So yeah, so I took that 2 days workshop in a weekend, and in fact, he talked more about because his work was he created lettering, but he used to emulate like 3D effects, but everything painted in Photoshop. Okay. So most of the part of the workshop was talking about lights and shadows and Photoshop effects, how to achieve that depth effect, that 3D effect. And we didn't have, of course, a lot of time to talk about the anatomy of the flourish, the letters and everything. So at the end of the workshop, I was able to create my piece, my lettering piece, that Jackson Alves, with a lot of that 3D effect, and I love so much. But I look for that piece I made, and okay, but I'd like to create something like he did, like that flourish and everything. And so I started, maybe I need to study more of this. I need to understand more. How can I create the anatomy of the letters? How can be able to reproduce that flourish? Because like a lot of people try to start in lettering calligraphy because they like the flourish, like all these elements, the decorations. And it's very frustration at the beginning, because you have no idea until you start to understand, maybe I need to understand the anatomy of the letter. Maybe I need to start to learn calligraphy. But until that point, I can reproduce that. But at the same time, I published that very geometric piece I create during the workshop. That time I have a portfolio in a website called Flickr that time. And I published that in my portfolio, and I have just a regular graphic design portfolio with just a few visits. And when I published that on my portfolio, I have a lot of views for me that time. And a person from Australia actually sent me an email that tried to invite me to do an interview about, I'd like to know more about the graphic design scene in Brazil, and I saw your work. And so that popped something in my mind as, maybe that's something big I can start to learn now. So after that point, I have two big reasons to start learn more about that stuff, because first, I was curious, and I'd like to be able to reproduce all that flourish I saw on the work of my friend. And I also have another thing that can encourage me to do that, because I saw the potential of this special work, because that only my first piece, the lettering, got some attention for people from other side of the world. After that, let's pay attention for this. And so I started to read a lot of books about typography first, because that was 2010. So we didn't have like online lettering workshops, and it was very hard to find online calligraphy course. So I started reading books about typography, and as much as I started to learn more about typography and anatomy of the letters, I started to understand, okay, so typography came from the calligraphy. So now I need to learn calligraphy. And then I started to buy books about calligraphy and find videos on YouTube, some people doing calligraphy and stuff, and start to try to reproduce that by myself in my house. And it's hard to do that like by yourself at first. So how can I use that pen? How can I put ink on that? Something like that. And so actually I started practice by myself, just reading books and by watching videos on YouTube for like almost 2 years, I think, until I got my first really in-person calligraphy workshop with a great master and a big friend of mine called Claudio Gil. This is a very famous calligraphy teacher in Brazil. And so then, but then I already have like 2 years practicing calligraphy. Yeah, that's kind of the a big story short.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so all of this time you were in Brazil, and was there much of a kind of calligraphy scene? I feel like around the world there's little pockets, but it's not necessarily something that's been as big as it sort of got now, or I just wasn't aware of it, and maybe it's always been there and we're only just starting to connect now that there's more social media and easier ways to do these things. But in Brazil at that time, were you kind of struggling to find these workshops and these artists who had that knowledge that you wanted to kind of tap into and learn?
Yeah, like I can recommend these two very important persons in Brazil. We used to call them the mother and the father of the calligraphy in Brazil, because one is my friend Claudio Gil, and another one is Andrea Branco. And so I actually find their names on the internet at that time. And I sent them an email asking, I'd like to learn more calligraphy. How can I learn more about that? Are you thinking about coming to my city to teach some workshop? And they said, no, we don't have plan to nowadays to go to our city. We usually teach some workshops in São Paulo, because São Paulo is a huge city and most of the thing happen in São Paulo in Brazil. So, or São Paulo or Rio de Janeiro, not my city. My city is southern Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so both of them recommend me to buy that book, The Art of Calligraphy, from David Harris.
David Harris, okay.
Yeah, so both of them recommend that book. So I buy that book and start to learn from that book. But that time we didn't have a lot of people teaching calligraphy and even practicing calligraphy. But that's the reason why I mentioned these two special people there, because they start to teach a lot of calligraphy workshops in São Paulo. And then we have like a new whole generation of calligraphy artists from that time. So after that time in about 2010, so a lot of people start to take these calligraphy classes. Most of the people was graphic designers actually, because they was looking for something, how to do some handmade work and stuff like that. And then we have a huge community of calligraphy in Brazil nowadays. And I believe now I can mention like we have like the third generation maybe there now, because I have like these two guys, the professors, and then I have my generation with a lot of people start to do calligraphy at that time, lettering, and then start to actually live as a lettering artist from that time. Then then was my turn. I started to teach calligraphy, I started to teach lettering, and my friend also started teaching calligraphy and lettering. So we have new generations from that. So it's really, really a huge community of calligraphy in Brazil. And I think the cool part of that, it's most of people there is young people, you know. When I first time came here to United States and was talking about calligraphy, I remember the calligraphy community here in the United States is huge, but it's more like old people. It's not so young people doing calligraphy. The young people start to do like lettering stuff, not exactly traditional calligraphy. But in Brazil, because of these two professors, most of the lettering community in Brazil also are calligraphy artists, because they understand since the beginning how important was learn calligraphy, you know? Yeah. So that's I think it was a great part, great thing in Brazil. The calligraphy community there is usually more young people, and most of the people there work with calligraphy and lettering at the same time. There is no division. Like, there is the calligraphy people, there's lettering people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
nice. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I think there's these lovely communities all around the world, and hearing how the kind of future of calligraphy is sort of being preserved and being taught, and we're sort of coming back round full circle to some of the traditional styles. But from the conversations I'm having, they are adopting the traditional styles and blending them with some newer tools or resources or ways to create, which is really interesting. So you are really a kind of king of lettering styles. You're a letter form expert. So your work covers so many. I mean, I can see on your back wall now, which I know we're on an Audible podcast, but there's beautiful work with loads of different styles, lots of different colors, quite large pieces, smaller pieces, and lots of different mediums that you're using, right? It's not just digital stuff, as you said, but what is your sort of favorite if you can choose one? It's like asking you to choose your favorite child, I know. But is there a style that you kind of like, I love doing this one?
Yeah, it's a good question, a hard question at the same time. I don't know. I love italic letters, black letter. I also start to love the Roman capitals because after I start to learn Roman capitals, and then you know how hard it to manipulate the brush to create that perfect anatomy of the Roman capitals. So it's really hard to pick one. But if I should pick just one, probably will be the black letters because I started doing calligraphy by learning textura quadrata and then fracture. And then they have a special place in my heart because I start with those styles. And a lot of people actually know my work because of the black letters. So yeah, so if I should pick just one, probably would be the black letters.
And what would you kind of use to create it? Would you go back to the sort of tools with like a broad edge pen, or are you doing these mostly digitally, or a bit of both?
Nowadays, like I do both. Actually, it took me a lot of time to convince myself to do calligraphy on the iPad, on the digital. Because like I started my career in the visual industry before the graphic design, and it was before the computer. So I started as a draftsman.
Yeah,
I was
draftsman.
a
Yeah.
draftsman, and it's all before the computer. So I started doing everything on the paper with India ink, everything. And then the computer arrived, and then I started working only on the computer all the time. So when I started calligraphy and learn going back to the paper and the inks, everything, I was always try to bring that to digital. Like, okay, can I do that on Adobe Illustrator? Can I do that on Photoshop? How can I emulate this on the digital stuff? But for that time, I didn't find any way to feel comfortable doing calligraphy on the digital world, like using like Wacom tablets, Photoshop, and Illustrator. I try a lot of tools, I try a lot of techniques, but anything convinced me to do that. I started to think like, okay, calligraphy should be made on the paper. That's it. And we can do the post work on the computer. We can change colors and everything, but the structure should be made in paper. And when the iPad arrived, I got my first iPad in 2018. I tried to do calligraphy on the iPad that time, and that's not good. That's not the same way. That's different. That's weird. And then I started to use my iPad to do all my lettering work, because when I use I changed 100% from doing sketch with pencil on paper, everything on my iPad. But the calligraphy stuff, like take a broadhead pen, I can't. I just can't. I try and I just can't. And the reason of that it's because I actually didn't try hard, and at one hand, and then another hand, the fact that I never found a calligraphy brush that I felt comfortable to create calligraphy on iPad, even on the Procreate. So I start to buy some brushes now and then okay, then I can do something a little bit better, but didn't convince me.
Yeah.
And
And
then
when you say brushes, you mean in Procreate, there is like a whole selection of different types of like digital brushes, basically, aren't they? So they look like different types of pens, they will create different marks on an iPad. And there's a certain amount of them that come as standard, but there's, people like you who give us a much bigger range. So sorry, go on. So you started creating some that made it easier for you to create?
Because when you get the Procreate, as you said, you have a lot of brushes inside Procreate ready to use, but we can't find like a calligraphy tool perfect to do this black letter work Roman capitals, italic, like everything we made with broad-edge nib. Like we have some pens to emulate the flexible nib, the copper plate something, but the broad-edge nib, I didn't find anything good there. Mm-hmm. So I need to buy a brush. So a lot of people start to create brushes, and then there was some people doing calligraphy and doing great calligraphy brushes. So I start to buy some calligraphy brushes to do that, but I don't know, for me, I didn't feel 100% comfortable. Like I can't rotate the pen. I don't know, sometime we got the pen put on the screen, and then I don't have the exact angle I need to achieve of that brush. But what happened actually that I started to realize that maybe I can create my own brushes, and then maybe I can figure out how to do this better, right? And then I started thinking about that. So, but all the time it was a side project. When you work as independent artist like me, a lot of people work like that. We need to think about, okay, we have a lot of projects we'd like to create, but I need to pick one because it's just one person to do everything. I need to create a piece, I need to record a video, edit video, and publish on social media. So it's hard work. Yeah. And then I start, okay, I need to do that. As a lot of projects I like to do, and okay, one day I need to do that. One day I need to do that. And then that's just one idea I had. Okay, someday I will take my time and I create these brushes and everything. I started create just one and then, but it's not enough. I need to put more time, more effort to create that. And that was the time when the Apple came to me with the first project. So in fact, I only took this time to really pay attention to how to create a brush. How can I make this feel more natural possible? Because Apple hired me to create this first project, actually. So that was 2023. And then, yeah, so...
And that project was, it was a sort of partnership with Apple where they had an event and you were creating a kind of calligraphic logo, but that you were actually creating the shape of an apple using your Procreate brush pens that you'd created, and kind of giving this sort of lovely brushstroke effect as it sort of animated out into the Apple logo, which was really, really cool, which people can see on your website. And so after the Apple project, what happened after that? Did suddenly everything explode? Were you already kind of big in the lettering world at this point, or was it all happening at the same time?
So they hired me and they asked, Jackson, we follow your work on social media and that we love your style, and that because of this kind of lot of big letters and brush strokes, everything I try to I have in my work. But the question is, can you recreate your style, your work, as you can create now using real brush and paint? Can you do everything inside the iPad? And so it was kind of challenge, can you do that, everything in iPad? So I said, okay, I can do that because I already know I can create my own brush that time. So actually, I create like around 100 brushes to create that project for Apple.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of, because every brush have a little different. So, and I start everything from the paper. Like, okay, let's create a lot of brush stroke on the paper, and then I put on the scanner, I put on Photoshop and trade that image. And then I start to think, okay, how can I translate this brush mark, this brush stroke to work well in the Procreate? So I create one, and that's good, but then change something. So I create another one. So I have a lot of brush until I reach the point, oh, this is something good. This is something great to create the piece. So then I create the piece to Apple. And then, so, okay, now it's time to put that out to word and make my commercial brush pack to make people able to create something like that, because I started enjoying and start to love this digital calligraphy because I was creating my own brushes.
Yeah.
And then, so actually I didn't use the brushes I used for Apple, but I create new brushes based on that. And then I start to define something what could be a good brush package to put on my shop. And then, so I released my first brush package. And
amazing. If you're enjoying this episode and fancy supporting the podcast, you can literally buy us a coffee. Head to the link in the show notes. It's a lovely way to help keep the Life of Letters going. Thank you. Now let's get back to the episode. And so are you still selling that brush pack? Do you sell different brushes? What kind of work are you doing? Obviously, you've got the Procreate elements, you've got the digital side. What else is happening at the moment for you?
Actually, I only have one brush pack, because instead of create a lot of small packets, I don't know, instead of create one brush and put five, I create a huge pack. I have 45 brushes inside that package. So the idea was, okay, you can buy this package and you can create, that will allow you to create most of the work you will need to create to emulate for real broadhead nib, like parallel pens or another pens. And also because most of my work is made with brush, so I have a huge brushes that emulates the flat brush, like with the dry brush with acrylic ink, and small brush because they work different from the larger one. So we have a lot of this one. And so actually I'm now working to create a new package, but this time to emulate the tools I don't have yet. For example, rolling pen is something I love to work, and it's the same thing. I didn't find yet a rolling pen like I really like to do in the Procreate. So I start to create this new package, but I don't have a date to have this ready yet.
Yeah, no pressure. This is a ruling pen, right? Is this the one that kind of, as you drag it across the paper, it's got like a soft bend in it and it kind of splatters out?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I've seen some of that incredible work, because you can create quite loose letters with it, can't you? And it's got this quite, very exciting movement to it that other letters might feel quite structured and kind of contained in all their rules.
Expressive.
I
love that. Yeah.
Yes, good word.
And
exactly.
I love use that pens. I love to create something like that. But the bad part I can say about that is like that takes a lot of ink, and it takes a lot of time to dry, to put the work to dry. It's because you do that very quick, so you need to do a lot of pieces, and then sometime when I create something like with that, I don't have space to put the papers to dry on my studio, because another seat, and
and you've got to keep them flat, I presume. Otherwise, if you hang them up, the
ink will start to like that. So so that's why I'm trying to emulate that, to create something to iPad too. But I know for now, all the tests I made, I'm not really able to emulate like 100%, maybe 50%. I don't know, but we don't know. Like depends of all the new features the Procreate releasing, or the Apple. For example, the last release from Apple, when they made that event with the logo I create from that, it's when the Apple released the new iPad Pro and the new Apple Pencil Pro. And the new Apple Pencil Pro now have the barrel roll feature that enable you to rotate your pen inside your finger with like emulate the real calligraphy pen. So that's, how can I say that? That's changed the game, like we already had the option to rotate the pen before that, because Procreate have a feature called azimuth, and then you can get a little rotate of the pen if you rotate your hand.
Right.
But we are not able that time to rotate our pen inside our finger like a real pen. You need to rotate your entire hand. So
got you.
with this new Apple Pencil Pro, now we can do that. The pencil have sensibility that you can feel the pressure. We had the tilt, the pen you're using, and also the rotation. So it's amazing to create the black letters, the italic, because a lot of letters you use on the paper you rotate your hand. For example, if you do the Roman capitals with a brush, part of the process is rotate your brush, because you need to start with the serifs and then rotate a little bit for another angle to come down. And then when you finish the letter, the stroke, you need to rotate your brush again to create another serif. So that possibility of rotate your pen with this new Apple Pencil changed the game. So yeah, they need to create something that too.
Yeah. And it's interesting that this is on Apple's agenda. You know, these new features are coming out, and they're obviously aware of just how exciting the kind of lettering, typography, the space of kind of visual calligraphic styles is, and how much that's sort of needed. I'm sure it benefits lots of other artists as well in other ways. So you've created some online courses and workshops, but what do you love about teaching lettering? So yeah, in your classes, in your courses, is there something that kind of gives you that spark? What's exciting?
You know, like when you start teaching, I believe the people who really love teaching, that's a lot of stuff we like because we love the helping people to learn a new skill and to share everything we already learned with that specific topic. And then seeing the people start learning and start improving their work, it's something like I think a good teacher like to see, you know. So actually I started teaching graphic software early in my career. Like I start to do some training in the companies I work to train the team how to learn. I remember that time I was start to learn Adobe Illustrator for the people in the design studio I already worked, because the people that time the people in Brazil use another software, and then people start to think, oh, maybe you need to change it to Adobe, because Adobe is the standard model for the industry. And then I start to do this just small for the team or the company. Okay, let's teach you guys how to use this Illustrator, how to use Photoshop, I don't know. And then, but that start to make me understand, oh, I like to do that. I like to teach people. It's something like it make me feel happy, and it's something good. I like that. Going a lot of years after that, when I start with the calligraphy stuff, and also because I said we didn't have a lot of classes that time, so it was kind of natural for me. People start to ask me, oh, Jackson, can you teach this calligraphy you're doing now? Can you teach lettering? And okay, I can do that. So I started teaching lettering and calligraphy. And actually I started at the same time to teach typography at a graphic design college in my city. So I started to... Wow. I work as a teacher in this graphic design college for 7 years, actually, teaching typography and also the graphic software, because I love both sides. I love analog and I love digital world. So so I started teaching calligraphy and lettering, and so I love have people realize they can create beautiful letters, and because most people think like, oh, I don't have the gift to do this kind of stuff like it, and try to prove that no, it's not a gift, it's a practice. You need to practice a lot of hours, and then we were able to create this also, like me. And so I love this feeling. Also, sharing my passion with another people makes me grow too, because for every class we prepare to teach, you need to learn, you need to study, you need to think about what about to teach. So it's something I really like to do.
That's so nice. And I agree that full circle of you're teaching them, but there's something new that you're learning each time as well. And this series, we're exploring the theme of legacy and innovation. And, you know, you said right back at the beginning that there's like new generations coming through. So already we can see that there's some legacy happening. And in terms of, the digital world, we've got lots of new innovative ways to create and craft letters and keep this kind of art form of creating letters alive. But is there something, what are you sort of hoping to see in the next few years for lettering? Is there anything that you think that's what we need?
For the next years, I don't know. I hope AI don't kill our profession first.
Yeah, good point.
Just kidding. Actually, AI doesn't kill anything. We do that ourselves.
That's true. That's true.
And I think AI is something we need to think about now, because it's something like I already made some tests recently, and I don't know, 1 year ago, when I tried to ask for example, ChatGPT, do one calligraphy for me, it was something very weird, and I thought that, okay, AI don't know how to create calligraphy yet. But nowadays, if you ask for example, ChatGPT to create a piece in calligraphy, it's already have something really, really emulate calligraphy right now. So I believe I need to, part of our challenge as educators, as lettering calligraphy artists, is to educating clients about the difference between AI generated work and handicraft, a really handicraft lettering, and emphasizing the value of the human touch, the traditional techniques. Like, it's a huge difference if there is a human person doing that work, or just put a prompt on the ChatGPT to ask them for something. And that is something I think is very important, because I believe we calligraphy and lettering artists, we need to pay attention for this. And I like when people start to blending analog and digital tools. It's something I always try to do, because like when I start to, as I already said, like I was always trying, can I do that on the Illustrator, Photoshop? Now I can do that on the iPad with Procreate. So I think we can't ignore the technology, because they are there, you need to face that. Like I was listening for an interview I made with, what the name of them? That's a woman from, I think, Australia.
Yes. On this podcast, or a different one?
Yeah, on this podcast. On this one. Yeah.
Leanne, the sign writer.
Yeah, the sign writer. Yeah, I was listening for that conversation, and I loved something she said, because she was talking about the sign writer from that time, that when computer arrived, they like turn them back to that and say, oh no, this is not real sign painting. And then she was explained that it would be so much better if the sign writer start to do the computer stuff, because they already have all that knowledge and can put that in the digital world. But as she said, most of the people didn't do that at that time. And so I wish now we don't make the same mistake. I understand I think all of us fear and are worried about miss our work and for the AI. I think the answer for that is not ignore the technology. Is try to understand and try to learn how can we put that inside our work and use as for our favor, not against us, And if you ignore that now, in a couple years, we don't have more calligraphy doing that. I don't know, people from tech, people from other areas try to say what is calligraphy, what is lettering, and so we need to be the first to embrace that, So I believe we really need to pay attention for that.
Yeah,
and I hope we do that.
I love that. I think that's so important, and what a lovely way to kind of wrap up the conversation. I think it's really interesting, this running theme of the fact that you create in both analog and digital. You build those bridges between those two worlds. You've got the traditional type, but you can also do a lot with it in terms of, animating it or creating it in different sizes, and adding different colors and bringing it through into the sort of newer world. It doesn't have to stay as a traditional style forever. It doesn't have to only be future styles. They can be work together, and the same with technology and the sort of analog tools that you use. So thank you so much. I think you've kind of really hit the nail on the head there. So if anybody is interested in finding out more about Jackson, you can visit him at jacksonalves.com. You can follow and connect with him at LetterJack on Instagram and LinkedIn. And as always, I will put all the details in the show notes for today's episode. So I just want to say a huge thank you, Jackson. Thank you for spending the time and talking to me and answering all my questions.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to The Life of Letters. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the rest of the series. If you can leave a quick review, that really helps the podcast reach more ears. And if you're enjoying these conversations, please consider buying us a coffee to help keep the episodes coming. All the details are in the show notes. Finally, once again, a big thank you to Speedball Arts for supporting this season and for being part of my calligraphy journey from the very start. Until next time, keep writing, keep creating, and keep celebrating the life of letters.